In this video, I will explain why Anduin was chosen as the central figure in the cinematic that launched this expansion, explore his connection to Azeroth, and uncover the essence of the war within. The battle raging within the heart of one of Azeroth's greatest champions is not just personal, it's a reflection of an ancient cosmic struggle between light and shadow that has echoed through the very threads of reality since the dawn of creation. A sensitive and thoughtful child, he was drawn more to the teachings of the light and the pursuit of peace than to the arts of war. As the newly crowned king, Anduin faced his greatest test during the Fourth War in the battle for Azeroth. He led his allies into war, not out of a desire for conquest or vengeance, but out of a sense of duty to protect his people and seek justice for atrocities such as the burning of Teldrassil. Anduin's idealism was sorely tested during this war. He sought peace, advocating for diplomacy even when others demanded bloodshed. In a desperate bid to end a cycle of hatred and violence, the young king forged alliances with former enemies, such as Cao Fang, one of the Horde's leaders. These decisions were not easy. They often put him at odds with his advisors and allies, who saw his actions as weakness or naivety. The war also forced Anduin to confront the darker aspects of leadership. He had to send soldiers to their deaths, weigh the value of lives in the cold calculus of strategy, and face the reality that even righteous causes demand sacrifices. The trauma Anduin endured under the domination spell cast by Zovaal, the jailer, is perhaps the most harrowing chapter in his life. Under Zovaal's control, Anduin was forced to become a weapon of destruction against his own will, a pawn in a cosmic game that threatened the fabric of reality. During this time, Anduin was conscious of the atrocities he was committing, but was powerless to stop them. This experience left him deeply scarred, as he was made to betray his allies, hurt those he cared for, and violate his own most deeply held beliefs. The most disturbing aspect for Anduin was the darkness that the domination spell awakened within him. While controlled by the jailer, Anduin found himself drawn to the power and ruthlessness that came with his actions. The internal conflict between the light he has always championed and the darkness he was forced to embrace has reshaped his understanding of who he truly is, blurring the lines of the character he once knew. In other words, Anduin no longer knows who he is and is afraid of what he might discover about himself. In this situation, only more agonizing is the world's soul within Azeroth. With the machines constructed deep inside the planet, the Titans were changing Azeroth's memories. As cosmic orderers, they seek to impose their vision of order and purity onto Azeroth, effectively rewriting her memories to align her with their ideals. This act could be seen as a way of suppressing or denying parts of her that didn't fit their notion of order, specifically her shadow aspect.
My friend, do the clouds still accost your mind?
Something much more terrifying. A moment of clarity. I have lived 1,000,000 lives and witnessed their endless unfolding threads. Was it a vision? A memory or a dream? Is there any difference?
Nosdormu, what did you see?
My hour grows late. The infinite horizon is all but inevitable. And once I become what they desperately want me to be, the darkest version of myself, the future will be lost. And so will I.
At last it has come to pass. The moment of my demise. The loop is closed. My future self will cause no more harm. Still, in time, I will fall to madness. And you, heroes, will vanquish me. The cycle will repeat. So it goes.
Time has a certain order to it, upheld by the Bronze Dragonflight and Nosdormu, who ensure that the correct version of events unfolds. This structure, distinct points in history that lead from past to present and onward to the future, reflects stability, continuity, and a sense of destiny or inevitability. The timeline is, in this view, predetermined. Only a few threads of time, close to the true one, can influence ours. The infinite horizon suggests a break from this finite structure. It could represent the literal collapse of time, where the distinction between moments blurs and the fabric of time itself unravels. This might manifest as alternate realities bleeding into one another, paradoxes occurring more frequently, or even a situation where past, present, and future happen simultaneously. Carl Jung's concept of the shadow refers to the unconscious part of the personality that the conscious ego does not identify with, essentially the darker, repressed, or less desirable aspects of the self. For Azeroth, these shadow aspects could be represented by the old gods. Manifestations of her shadow self, they are, with their malevolent, chaotic nature, the parts of her being that embody chaos, destruction, and corruption. In Jungian terms, the conscious self is the part of the psyche that is aware and operates according to the values and beliefs one identifies with. If Azeroth's conscious self is aligned with order, creation, and life, the values the Titans sought to impose, then her shadow self, represented by the old gods, embodies the repressed, chaotic, and destructive aspects of her nature. The Titans' efforts to reshape Azeroth's memories can be viewed as an attempt to suppress her shadow, striving to mold her completely into a being of order and light. However, Jung argued that denying the shadow only leads to greater internal conflict. The shadow does not disappear simply because it is ignored. Rather, it grows more powerful and potentially destructive when not acknowledged and integrated. The Maw is the deepest part of Azeroth's subconscious, where the most repressed fears and unresolved traumas reside. Here, forgotten or suppressed aspects are trapped, much like how Torghast is a place where souls are imprisoned and tormented. The domination magic used by Zovaal binds and suppresses free will, stripping life and emotion of their spontaneity and vitality, effectively freezing the cycle of life and death in eternal servitude. In contrast to the old gods, who thrive in chaos and emotion, the forces of death, as represented by Zovaal, aim for absolute control over Azeroth's psyche, cutting off her capacity for growth, transformation, and hope. Deneithrius feeding the Maw with the shadow part of mortal souls, the darker emotions such as pride, fear, hatred, and despair, empowered the repressed, unresolved aspects of Azeroth's psyche. As these shadow elements are the very aspects that prevent healing and self-awareness, they were opening her hunger to engulf creation in dominance. The Drust, in their state of limbo between life and death, are a twisted manipulation of the natural cycle, blending death and life into something unnatural. They draw power from this in-between state, using death not as an end, but as a tool to manipulate life through ancient druidic magic corrupted by their necromantic influence. With their witchcraft, they pervert life's natural order, standing at the edge of both worlds and exploiting the power they find in the decay and darkness of the forest. The Drust lands, Thros, embody Azeroth's blind desire for revenge, similar to how the Drust druids sought vengeance against the humans who killed them. Thros, as a realm of death and decay, reflects the destructive, unrelenting nature of this revenge, where rage festers without resolution. In her sleep, Azeroth's conscious mind is suppressed, which means that her unconscious mind, where the shadow resides, would dominate her internal experience. According to Jung, the unconscious mind is a reservoir of all the experiences, fears, desires, and aspects of the self that are not fully acknowledged by the conscious mind. During sleep, especially a prolonged or forced sleep, Azeroth's unconscious would be more active. This would likely mean that her shadow self, which contains all the parts of her that have been suppressed or rejected by the Titans, would emerge more strongly. The old gods, as manifestations of this shadow, would become more prominent in her mind, influencing her dreams and possibly her reality, even as she remains unconscious. Azeroth's nightmares, in this context, would be the manifestation of her repressed shadow self. In her dreams, Azeroth might see visions of the old gods rising, spreading their corruption across the land. These nightmares could represent her deep internal fear of losing herself to chaos, as well as the ongoing struggle within her to integrate these dark forces.
It is perilous to confuse what you are made to do with what you choose to do.
How can I not when it all blurs together? It was so horrific and exhilarating. And it sickens me to think that satisfaction may have been mine.
You fear you might not be who you thought you were.
I'm starting to wonder if I ever knew.
Her nightmares might also replay memories of the Titan's attempts to alter her nature. These could be fragmented, distorted memories where she experiences the pain of having parts of herself, her shadow aspects, stripped away or sealed away. This might manifest as dreams where she is being chained, locked away, or her essence being divided. Another possible nightmare theme could be Azeroth's struggle to maintain a sense of identity amidst the conflicting forces within her. She might dream of being torn apart, with one side pulling her towards light and order and the other towards darkness and chaos. Such dreams might symbolize her internal struggle to reconcile the different facets of herself and attain a sense of unity. Given that Azeroth's consciousness is tied to the fate of her inhabitants, she might also dream of the downfall of her champion's heroes who represent different facets of her being. These nightmares could involve scenes of her champions falling to corruption or being destroyed by the very forces she seeks to keep at bay. They would reflect her fears that the shadow within her is too powerful to be contained and that it might lead to her complete destruction. For Azeroth, her nightmares, though terrifying, are a necessary part of her journey towards self-realization. They force her to confront the aspects of herself that have been denied and to seek a way to integrate them into her being. The old gods, as embodiments of her shadow, cannot simply be destroyed or suppressed without consequence. Instead, they must be understood, confronted, and ultimately integrated in order to achieve true wholeness and balance. If the old gods are considered as manifestations of Azeroth's shadow, Xal'atath could be seen as a more conscious, sentient part of that shadow, a piece of Azeroth's repressed identity that has retained its own agency and awareness over time. As a sentient force, Xal'atath could be both a remnant of the old god's influence and a representation of the ancient, primordial will of Azeroth herself, a will that the Titans sought to suppress in their efforts to shape the universe according to their vision of order. If Xal'atath is striving to wake Azeroth and restore her memories, this could indicate that Xal'atath is not just a destructive force, but also a catalyst for transformation. In this role, Xal'atath is not necessarily malevolent, though her methods and nature might appear dark and dangerous. Instead, she could be seen as a necessary force in the cosmic balance, a part of Azeroth's nature, Xal'atath may be driven by her connection to the void, but her true intentions remain unclear, whether she will bring destruction or be the one to defeat it. One hypothesis suggests that the blue moon was split into two halves, its light and shadow separated, leaving Xal'atath as the embodiment of its darker, hidden side. She could be serving her Void Masters or pursuing her own agenda, with her ultimate goal possibly being to claim the blue moon as a vessel for her essence. The second hypothesis is that Xal'atath is a fragment of Musha, separated in the aftermath of the event that led to the wounding of the sun. The wound inflicted on the sun can be interpreted as a consequence of his pride. This pride could lead to an overestimation of its strength and a belief that it can control or deny the darker aspects of existence. After his heart was bitten, the necrotic part of it was removed and imprisoned in the void, then replaced by Elun. To balance life and creation, Musha might have removed aspects of herself, leading to Xal'atath becoming one of the dark sides of the moon. Considering Musha as the introspective part of Azeroth, it makes sense that she is more closely linked to its shadowy aspects than the sun, and Shay, which represents the conscious and ego-driven side. Influenced by the balance within Azeroth's mind, she exists on the threshold between shadow and light. However, following the wounding of the sun, her role and position shift, leading to the emergence of aspects that take on individual identities. Musha balances light and shadow, which explains her multiple aspects and phases. She embodies both sides of the psyche, acting as a bridge between Azeroth's conscious desires and primal instincts.
Do you accept the judgment of your homeland?
I accept your judgment, Mother.
My daughter. Forgive me. Forgive your father. And forgive yourself.
Come topside, sweetheart.
ancient words, I invoke your most ruthless phase. With this offering, I demand to wear your darkest face. Elune, make me the instrument of your vengeance! Now we shall have justice. The Night Warrior lives within me.
By our hand, we may yet guide their souls unto their spring, starting with this one. Tyrande invoked me. She must choose vengeance or renewal.
In the folk story, The Embrace, it's mentioned that at evening, the moon descends on a bridge of twilight to take her place in the sky, waving to the sun. Twilight, described as not one thing nor the other, represents a liminal space, a transition between day and night, light and shadow, conscious and unconscious. The moon, as the goddess of eternal twilight, represents this delicate balance, standing between creation and destruction, stagnation in order and chaos. While twilight is the moment of balance, midnight represents total darkness, the complete absence of light, the true enemy of both the sun and the moon. This nuanced view of Musha illustrates her complexity compared to the more focused nature of the sun. It shows the difference between the one path of the light and how Tyrande describes her. In her light, all truths are revealed. It showcases her role to navigate the balance between creation and destruction, hope and despair, light and shadow. Anshe is life, lawful order, and the active consciousness within Azeroth's psyche, with the heart representing the core of light or ego, the drive for life and clarity. When the shadow self, Azeroth's repressed primal instincts, wounds the heart of the sun, it brings a disruption in the integrity of the light. This mirrors how a wounded Naaru turns to void as the injured light degrades into shadow. Thus, the necrosis of the heart represents the weakening of the ego, allowing the shadow aspects of Azeroth to gain influence. Anshul is this necrotic part and embodies the pull towards dissolution and non-being. It is negation, entropy, and the absence of light. The wound allows the void to emerge, for light and void do not merely oppose each other, but transform into one another under certain conditions, much like the phases of the Naaru, echoing the cyclical nature of creation and destruction within Azeroth's psyche. The Naaru were created to fill the role of the sun, which became less accessible to mortals due to its illness. By embodying the lawful good aspects of the sun, they provided a more active and approachable representation of the holy light. This allowed mortals to connect with divine energy that the sun could no longer offer. It's not random that the Yine, the souls of the deceased Taurine, were used to heal the bleeding sun and help it rise each morning, just as the souls of the Orcs were used to heal the Naaru on Draenor. Azeroth's psyche grants both soul and individuality to even the smallest creatures, as well as to her cosmic children. The souls of mortals play a crucial role in maintaining balance within the current flawed creation because they are part of her and possess inherent power. Their state influences hers, and her state influences their fate. The titles from Ardenweald's music, Choice, Oblivion, and Choice, Rebirth, reflect this duality of existence and the choices that shape both mortal and cosmic destinies. As half of the blue moon, Xal'atath represents false hope, the illusion of salvation that deceives individuals into pursuing paths leading to their destruction. She dangles temptation, sweet lies, and maddening truths, knowing their desires and ambitions will blind them to the dangerous consequences. She embodies the fragility of hope, which can be fleeting and easily shattered, leading to despair when her empty promises are revealed. While Elune fosters balance, light, and genuine introspection, Xal'atath distorts these virtues, leading her victims astray through misguided ambitions to serve her own ends. Her approach is never direct. Instead, she whispers insidious promises and half-truths, preying on the pride, ambitions, and fears of those she encounters. Unlike the old gods, whose madness is overt, Xal'atath is cunning, offering help or guidance in ways that seem benign, but ultimately lead her victims down a path of destruction or subjugation.
I've seen you, Windrunner. Always alone, pushing everyone away to embrace the hunt. Just like the monster you pretend not to be.
You're the only monster here.
Am I? You've slain hundreds to find me. Was that really all for Khadgar? Or is it just your nature to destroy? Come, Malaria. Embrace who you truly are.
Malaria. I know who I am.
Run all you like. I'm coming for all of you.
From Azeroth's consciousness, avatars can emerge as individual entities, each representing a distinct aspect of her psyche. Such are the old gods, Xal'atath, and the three celestials, the sun and the two moons. The sun represents the exuberance of life, while the white moon symbolizes Azeroth's more introspective thoughts. Though the white moon and the sun were born of love, the blue moon was born from sorrow. If Azeroth is the creator of reality, her rebirth would carry profound implications not only for herself, but for the entire universe. This resonates with the will of the Titans to allow for the birth of the last Titan. or with Zoval's actions in trying to dominate her and remake existence in the image he imagined and with the power he had at his disposal. Upon rebirth, Azeroth would awaken as a unified consciousness, fully aware of her role as the creator and fully in control of the reality she has shaped. New laws of existence could emerge, altering the way life, magic, time, and space function within the universe. This redefinition could lead to the birth of new forms of life, new dimensions, or even new concepts of existence that reflect Azeroth's unified nature. Could this lead a more balanced and stable cosmos? If the story about the first ones is to be believed, this might not be the case. The central figure of Emir Drasil could represent the Axis Mundi, a connection point between different realms, the underworld, the physical realm, and the heavens, a crucial part of her psyche, a source of spiritual divine energy that can help stabilize her as she faces the encroaching shadow.
Its roots will reach, welcoming our embrace.
In the battle ahead, the World Tree is designed as a haven, a sanctuary where light and hope can be preserved in the face of the encroaching darkness. It will also be a refuge against the blazing power of the light, the center pillar for balance of the collective psyche, of the creator goddess and of her champions. It should help the world's soul find balance between her conscious aspirations with its branches and her unconscious drives with its roots. She would awaken to full awareness of how her dreams, timeways, memories shape the fabric of existence and how her will shapes not just her world, but the flow of all time and space. In this state, she could consciously influence or rewrite the rules of reality itself, no longer subject to external manipulation by the Titans or other entities. If she would be able to choose to integrate her shadow self, then true light and true shadow would meet, Azeroth would be reunited, no more a mere battleground for the six forces. That might be the end of reality. In the next video, we will explain exactly who Xal'atath is, how old this character actually is in the story, and what inspired Chris Metzen in her creation.